everyone. Welcome to the weekly news roundup at Plotlines. How are you guys doing? Sorry, I'm late. Had to take care of something before I was able to go live, but I'm here and ready and excited to get through some of the news of the week. It was not like a major week news-wise. I would say nothing like a lot of talk, a lot of potential things happening in the background, but no big drama. Maybe I guess no big actions, I should say, in regards to that drama. So but we're going to talk about some of these stories. I'm just going to go through them quickly and then we'll get to them in depth. So first story of the week that I'm going to go through is just sort of the Pope's health. The Pope is in the hospital, and he's not out of the woodwork yet. So I will be discussing that. The USCCB has sued the Trump administration over the halting of funds for refugees, which is quite interesting. And just the fact that basically the Catholic bishops of the United States of America are trying to sue Trump to get money back from the taxpayer, even though they're not a government organization. Whether they get funds should not be a huge concern for the bishops. So we'll get into that. And then Trump called Zelensky a dictator, and there's a lot of tension there regarding trying to get peace in the Ukraine-Russia war. So we'll get into that. There is also, if we have time, Mitch McConnell is retiring, and Kash Patel has been confirmed director of the FBI. So we'll be getting into that all today. And I recently set up super chats. So if anybody has a super chat, I will get into that at the end of this stream. This is the sort of the stream that I'll be able to go through the super chats weekly. So send them in. Let me know what you're thinking. If you have a comment, and you really want me to read it out loud for everyone else, or you want your question answered, something like that, I will do my best to get to that, and you'll be supporting the channel. So first off, we have on Vatican News, we have a story about the Pope. So doctors, Pope responding to treatment, but not yet out of danger. This story at a press conference in Rome, Gemelli Hospital, members of Pope's medical team says that he's not yet out of danger and will be in the hospital at least another week, but they note that he is joking as much as usual and has even begun working again. So, the Pope was diagnosed with double pneumonia, and he's already he's basically in a tough situation. Medically in general, he's been in the hospital many times, and this is just the most recent incident. Pope Francis is not in danger of death, but he is also not fully out of danger, members of the medical team have said, which because I'm not a doctor, I don't really fully understand the difference between not being out of danger but not being in danger. Like, how can you be both? I don't know if that's if there's a real medical a line between those two, but to me, if you're not out of danger, you would then be in danger. So I don't know, but that's what we're getting from his doctors. At a press conference in Rome's Gemelli Hospital, Dr. Sergio Alfieri, the head of the team taking care of the Pope, and Dr. Luigi Carbone, the vice director of the Vatican's health service, spoke for some 40 minutes to a room full of journalists. So they basically said that he'd be out for another week at least. He's not attached to a ventilator. but he is struggling with his breathing, and he has to keep his movements limited. He's sitting upright in chair and working and joking. That's kind of funny. Hello, Holy Father. He, the doctor said to him, and he said, "Hello, Holy Son." I mean, I get it. It's kind of funny. I don't know if that's a good way to joke, but that's not for me to say exactly. So basically, I mean, that's the basics. Is that things are still, the Pope is still up in the air there, and we should be praying for the Holy Father that he whether or not he recovers or whether or not he dies, at this point, we should be praying for him to get better and for his soul. So that's basically the overall story that comes from his illness. Let's get to the U.S. Catholic bishops sue the Trump administration for a halt in funding for refugee settlement. This is on AP. This is the story. Catholic bishops sued the Trump administration on Tuesday over its abrupt halt to the funding of refugee settlement or resettlement, calling the action unlawful and harmful to newly arriving refugees to the nation's largest private resettlement program. First of all, the Catholic bishops should not be the largest resettlement program, especially with the money of the government. The Catholic bishops and the dioceses should not be taking money from the government, especially when they are not a unless I guess unless the state was a Catholic state, unless this country was basically a religious state. Instead, it is a secular state, which basically means getting money from the secular state is going to influence the church into acting accordingly, which basically means softening the beliefs and softening the doctrines of the Catholic faith in order to fit the secular state. Because, of course, every state has a religion. Every country has a religion. And the United States does have that. And it's been either sort of this liberal theology, or it has become recently sort of the woke ideology has become basically the religion of the state. But yeah, so it's being influenced by that. So it's interesting. Also, they're calling it unlawful. I mean, unlawful. It's unlawful to not give money to the USCCB to resettle people who are illegally here, basically, because that's what they mean by refugees. So when they mean refugees, they usually mean illegals. So it's unlawful for the Trump administration to not give money to a group that is then basically putting illegals before American citizens. I mean, it's one thing for the Catholic bishops to take the money, or to take money that is donated or that they have gotten from their the Catholic Church themselves, like the people of the church donating their money to such a purpose. But of course, the Catholic faithful is not going to give that money for that purpose, because the Catholic faithful do not believe that that money would be used wisely, and that this is necessarily a good cause, and that we need to, settle everyone in the world into the United States of America. That's not like a Catholic dogma. That's not necessary to be Catholic. You don't need to believe that. People are required, if they want to come in here, if they want to come to the United States, they must do so legally, and they must respect the country that they are coming to, and that it is up to each country how many people that they are willing to accept as immigrants or refugees or anything like that. And people who are doing this so illegally do not constitute people respecting that country. You can't respect a country when you're doing something illegally, when you're not following the rules. So if whether you agree with the rules or not, that is basically the situation, and the Catholic Church is very explicit about that. So this is a embarrassing thing for the USCCB to be doing. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops says that the administration, by withholding millions even for reimbursements of costs incurred before the sudden cutoff of funding, violates various laws as well as the constitutional provision given the power of the purse to Congress. So basically, I mean, I don't know if this was explicitly written in the law, whatever law they're talking about, that allows U.S. aid or something, gives money to U.S. aid. I don't think the money was probably expressly specified to be going to the USCCB for this purpose. I'm guessing it was within the sort of within the bounds of USAID to give that money to groups, but not necessarily specific groups. So why would it be illegal for them to prevent this money from being actually spent? It's clear that this migration and refugee situation is not necessarily something desired by the faithful. And of course, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is supposed to be taking care of the Catholics of the United States of America, not the Catholics of the world. Then they would be the world's conference of Catholic bishops. They might have an obligation to other, basically migrants or something like that, but the USCCB does not. The conference's migration and refugee services has sent layoff notices to 50 workers, more than half of its staff. Good. That is very good news. With additional cuts expected in local Catholic charities offices that partner with the national office. Very, very good. This is something that the USCCB needs to learn, that it should not be trying to suck up to the US government in order to get funds. They should be looking to their own people, their own parishioners, and asking for donations and working off of those donations. There's a reason people don't want to give money to the dioceses or organizations such as the USCCB or Catholic Charities, is because they don't trust the bishops with their money, which is a problem for the bishops. They need to figure that out. They need to earn back the trust of the faithful. In some ways, they just use this money to basically get new faithful. They almost want to replace the Catholics that they already have. They're not interested in converting the American public to Catholicism. Of course, that would be anti sort of the current idea. That would be anti what sort of the mindset of the church has been for the last sort of 60 years. It basically would be almost seen as anti-Catholic, even though it's not. It's Catholic doctrine to desire to convert and to work for the salvation of souls. That is the purpose of the Catholic bishops. Save souls. You're not trying to save bodies. You're not trying to make people's lives better necessarily in the sense of like materially. Spiritually should be the primary focus of the USCCB. Physically secondary. That is completely secondary purpose, and the USCCB is obviously failing to prioritize correctly. So this is a quote from Archbishop Timothy Broglio. The Catholic Church always works to uphold the common good of all and promote the dignity of the human person, especially the most vulnerable among us. That includes the unborn, the poor, the stranger, the elderly, the infirm, and migrants. Okay, the migrant thing would only be within the law, within within what we are allowed, what the state is supporting. So if the state is not interested, or it says this person is illegal, this person has broken our laws, that person has not fallen into sort of the category where the USCCB should be stepping in to protect. They should be assisting, or they should be working with the government, as long as there's nothing immoral about sort of deporting them, which there isn't. Deportations are, it's not inherently immoral. Yeah, of course, the elderly. I mean, the stranger. What do you mean by the stranger? I mean, it's not just the stranger to you is obviously not the stranger to everybody. So if you mean, it doesn't necessarily mean migrants. The stranger might be within your vicinity. You can't you can't protect the world. You can't take care of the vulnerable of the whole world. That's the responsibility of certain people. People make that their mission in the world, like Mother Teresa did, which is a beautiful thing. But you are the USCCB. You are the Catholic bishops representing the United States and working for the salvation of the souls of Americans. Can you please go back to doing that? Can you make that your primary focus? Right? Make that your primary focus, and other things could follow after that. But you're not making that the primary focus. That's like fourth down the list, or maybe fifth. It might not even be on the list. The conference suddenly finds itself unable to sustain its work to care for the thousands of refugees who were welcomed into our country and assigned to the care of the USCCB by the government after being granted legal status. What do you mean by legal status? They broke the law. You are making a temporary measure. That's what the Biden administration did. The USCCB should actually just probably help deport them, because that's how the law is structured. The Biden administration was bending the law, which is not good, which is not what the USCCB should be participating in. They should not have been helping the people, or helping Biden bend the law. They should be saying, no, we can't help you. This is against the law. Now that Trump is actually trying to sort of enforce the law, which would be deport illegals, which is the point of what is a person who's illegal? A person who is illegal has broken the law, has come here illegally, has not been welcomed. So it's funny, they like to say that, oh, they've been welcomed. Well, the American people and the American government did not legally welcome these people. These people were basically encouraged by organizations like this that has sort of told people they can come, and then we can't care for them. We can barely care for our own people. How are we supposed to take care of the whole world? This is an impossible situation, and this just goes to show you the priorities of the of today's church. It's very sad, in my opinion. Okay, that's that. Now let's talk about Zelensky and Trump and Zelensky. So this is from antiwar.com. On Wednesday, President Trump called Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky a dictator who has done a terrible job, as the two leaders are trading barbs and renewed U.S. diplomacy with Russia. This is the quote. Thinking of it, a modestly successful comedian, Vladimir Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and quote unquote Trump, will never be able to settle. Anyway, so that, first of all, the point of that is to say that we basically went, like, I guess we don't, Trump's kind of wrong in the sense that there wasn't much argument, I don't think, that Zelensky needed to make to get the United States government to support this war. I think the United States government wanted this war. I mean, so you can see that by NATO's expansion at the against sort of the requests of Russia. Russia is basically saying, please don't, or you agreed to not move NATO closer to our borders, and then you did, and you move. A bunch of Baltic countries have been brought into NATO, uh, and Ukraine. The government wouldn't rule out bringing in Ukraine, and that led to and then there was a neutral or sort of person who was trying to play both sides that was made president of Ukraine, and then the United States orchestrated a coup that overthrew him and replaced him with the Zelensky government. So the Zelensky government being a puppet, more or less, the of the um, of the Western military industrial complex or NATO and stuff like that. And Trump is kind of seeing this as an impossible thing to seeing the war as an impossible situation to win, and basically a waste of money. And he wants to get the United States out of supporting Ukraine and make sure that there is peace. The post that I read came after Zelensky said Trump was living in a disinformation space in response to his criticism of Ukraine not holding elections, for not reaching a deal with Russia earlier in the war or before the invasion. I would like to have more truth with the Trump team. So Zelensky is basically attacking the hand that feeds him. I mean, the United States has basically been supporting him and had encouraged him to lead this war. And of course, Vladimir Putin is the one that invaded, but Zelensky also isn't looking for a opportunity to make peace. There was an opportunity, I think it was only a month into the war, that he could have made peace with Putin, but Boris Johnson was sent over as a representative of sort of the West or NATO, and basically said, you're not allowed to do this. Don't sign this peace agreement. So a war that could have been ended earlier. That's kind of Trump's point. And Trump is calling Zelensky a dictator because he won't, or he canceled elections. He won't allow elections to exist in Ukraine for a new government. And Trump basically is looking for a new government which would allow him to negotiate this a peace between Russia and Ukraine. Zelensky is obviously not interested in that peace, so therefore Trump is kind of looking for an alternative leader who maybe also might represent the mood of the Ukrainian people better. So on the top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent to him is missing. He refuses to have elections. He's very low in the Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. That's what Trump said. Trump's sort of attack on Zelensky. He's trying to sort of, maybe you could say, bully him. He's definitely trying to get him to the peace table somehow, or at least get Ukraine to the peace table. Or maybe he's also might be trying to make the Zelensky government appear to be not an important aspect, or somebody that doesn't really represent the Ukrainian people, or something like that. That seems kind of to be his goal. Trump said his administration was currently and successfully negotiating an end to the war in Ukraine. U.S. and Russian officials agreed on Tuesday during talks in Saudi Arabia to work to normalize diplomatic relations and towards an end to the war, which is huge because the Russian diplomats had not been in America, and vice versa. American diplomats are not in Russia. This is something that needs to be reset up. Diplomatic relations need to be reset up between the two countries, because obviously, in some ways, this is just a proxy war. The Russia war is just proxy war, and in a way, the United States is almost just as or a bigger part of this war than even the Ukrainians. Of course, the Ukrainian lives are what's being lost. That's which obviously Zelensky doesn't seem to really care that much about. If you're losing hundreds of thousands of men, uh, and you're running out of men, which Russia is a bigger country, they're not running out of men as quickly as Ukraine is. So this is kind of the danger, which obviously shows that Zelensky may not really be working in the interest of his people, which he is. He doesn't even represent his people. I believe he's not Ukrainian exactly either ethnically, so he may not have a real. He may not really have the support or the best interest at heart for his own people, which I think is a valid argument. But this is Trump saying Biden never tried. Europe had failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep on the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues, Trump said. Vice President J.D. Vance also took aim at Zelensky over his criticism of President Trump. The idea that Zelensky is going to change the president's mind by bad-mouthing him in the public media, everyone who knows the president will tell you that it is an atrocious way to deal with this administration. And that's sort of the basics of the a bunch of stuff that's been going on. Now another basically another Catholic official, another bishop that is worth sort of recognizing is Cardinal Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem. So we have time for that. Let me see if I can bring this up. Hold on. No, here it is. Okay. This is Robert Kearney's tweet. Pizzaballa on clergy sex abuse. In the Middle East, we do not, this is a quote from him, in the Middle East, we do not really have the specific issue of child abuse in our churches. In such cases, the penal law allows for the death penalty, whereas the tribal law can be even harsher. That is a very interesting and important statement by the Archbishop. I mean, think about how kind of we let people off so easily when it comes to terrible crimes that they've committed. And of course, a mood ever since sort of John Paul II has been sort of downplaying the death penalty. Pope Francis has been even stronger about his dislike for the death penalty, and he, of course, only references himself regarding the death penalty. Benedict XVI had said that you could disagree with John Paul II's, opinion on the death penalty, and the death penalty is licit, and that's kind of the point. Pope Francis has kind of argued against that, but with terrible crimes such as the abuse that he's talking about, I can't see a way around sort of having harsh punishments for these types of people that commit these crimes. And I think it's way better to have this sort of harsh penalty, which I don't even know what I'm kind of wondering what the tribal law is. I kind of don't want to know because it's probably pretty gruesome if the legal law is basically, or the the penal law. So penal law is the death penalty, and the tribal law is even harsher than that, which I can't blame them. That sort of, to me, seems just. And death penalty has much defense in the Bible for its existence. So, and and there, it has a long history of usage by Christians and even popes previously. But this, goes to show you that I think Cardinal Pizzaballa, I don't know if he's exactly making an argument for it to, the death penalty, but I don't see how he's not, because he's basically saying there's not really that kind of child abuse in his world because of the death penalty. So I can't imagine he would say, "Oh, let's get rid of that." That seems doesn't make a lot of sense. But that, if he were to become pope, that would be amazing. It's probably unlikely, but he seems like a wonderful pastor, a wonderful, wonderful bishop. I mean, he has been fighting for peace in, sort of arguing for peace in the Middle East. And I think he's a great representative for the Catholic Church there. And in that way, he's probably somewhat, Pope Francis is also pretty good when it comes to trying to get peace in the Middle East, which I believe Pizzaballa, Cardinal Pizza or Archbishop Pizzaballa wanted to go into, was it Gaza or maybe it was the West Bank? I don't remember exactly. And they were not letting him in. And then Pope Francis made comments about it, and then they let Archbishop Pizzaballa into the area to help Christians and to take care of those in need. And I can't remember what he probably used to say mass too and stuff like that. I don't remember all the purposes for his visit, but he was able to get through, and that way Pope Francis and him were very much on the same page. Also, we're gonna be winding down in a little bit, so if you have a super chat, feel free to put that in the comments. It would really support the channel. Otherwise, I'm gonna just talk briefly about Mitch McConnell and Kash Patel. So first, let's start with Kash Patel because it will lead into the Mitch McConnell situation. So Kash Patel was confirmed. I think it was 51-49 in the Senate for becoming director of the FBI. He's caused a lot of scare, fear from for Democrats, and he is definitely a big Trump loyalist. So in that way, it's a pretty big deal. And he has talked about how he wants to stop the attacks on traditional Catholics from the FBI. So that's a pretty big deal. And if that were to stop, that would be fantastic. Yeah, so I mean, Kash Patel is a pretty good choice. There might have been a better one, I don't know, but of the options that we were basically given, he seems to be one of the best that we could possibly get. And then one of the big deals with his confirmation was, well, first, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski voted against with all the Democrats. So basically, no Democrats voted for Kash Patel. Of course, this is a partisan issue. Kash Patel is very much viewed as a partisan. There were quote unquote concerns is that he will politicize the FBI. Of course, he intends to depoliticize the FBI because it's been politicized forever. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover, the first FBI director, was spying on everyone. Basically, he was using it for political purposes as well. So it'd be nice to see the FBI purged of sort of big political actors trying to use the FBI against its own citizens. And he even said that he would shut down the Hoover building and send the FBI agents across the country to not be basically in the swamp, but instead being actually acting like police officers, acting like investigative officers of the law, which is what they're supposed to be. So Kash Patel has some interesting ideas. cleaning up the FBI. It will be interesting to see how well he does, how much he's able to accomplish, and I'm looking forward to that. But he hasn't really done anything, so there's not really much to talk about regarding that. Mitch McConnell is not running for his, I believe, what would be his 8th term. So 2026, the midterms, is when he would be running again. He is going to not run, which kind of opens the way for possibly Thomas Massie to become the senator from Kentucky. I would be really happy if that were the case. If Kentucky became sort of Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, I think that would be a great situation for the Senate. It'd be great to add another voice of sort of maybe, I guess, skeptical of the government. That's kind of the best way to say it. He is very skeptical, as well as skeptical of sending money overseas and interested in lowering taxes and stuff like that. I think, even though I probably wouldn't agree with Thomas Massie or Rand Paul on everything, I think they are a much better duo to have in the Senate than Mitch McConnell was. Mitch McConnell worked often with the Democrats. Now, he did a good job of getting judges through confirmations, and he stopped Merrick Garland from becoming a justice of the Supreme Court and filling Antonin Scalia's spot. But really, Mitch McConnell has, been a thorn in Trump's side, which not in a good way. There's probably situations where it'd be good to be a thorn in Trump's side, especially on sort of IVF, which I guess I didn't talk about a little bit. Trump is trying to make IVF more affordable, and this is a real terrible thing. I mean, IVF is basically where you attempt to create human life in a petri dish while also ending up destroying human life. You destroy embryos. Basically, you're destroying future kids, and sometimes they're frozen, and you're keeping them basically as prisoners. It really is disgusting, and that is certainly, I am very frustrated with that move by the Trump administration. I hope JD Vance can maybe move the president on this decision, but unfortunately, it is, I believe, very popular amongst people, and it's a real shame because it's just they obviously don't really understand it. Even many pro-life people don't really understand it. The Catholic Church, in many ways, not like every bishop or every person in the Catholic Church, but the Catholic Church really is the only institution and the only groups of people that are really fighting for the end of IVF, fighting against IVF. And I think probably one of the reasons IVF is basically being pushed by the Trump administration probably has a lot to do with Elon Musk. It's my understanding that he has used IVF. I don't know how many times, but he has been that's sort of common use by him. So I would say that's very sad, and I hope that is changed. I hope that IVF is banned, and I hope Trump goes back on this at some point. Brendan Smith says, "Are we going into the end of days?" I think everyone of every generation thinks that we're going into the end of days, mostly because I think we're all inching closer to our own death, our own demise. And because of that, I think that's sort of why our inclination is towards the idea that we're in the end of, or moving towards the end of days. I'm skeptical. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think there are many little sort of apocalyptic like times that, I think in World War II, you'd probably think we were in the middle of the apocalypse or something like that, because of how much evil and how much death there was, and how angry God must have been with us at that time. And he's still very angry with us. Otherwise, we would probably have better shepherds at the moment. But I just don't think we're at the end of days at the moment. Any other questions, super chats, last call, for this stream, or obviously if you're not able to support via super chat, feel free to leave other comments. Just regular comments is fine too. Let me know if I missed anything. I think I need to. Sorry, Brendan. I think I forgot. I didn't get a chance to ask AM about your question from last week. I'll try to do that this week. If I don't, again, remind me. Maybe also remind me in another video if I don't do it. I'll do my best to get that question answered. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Please like, share, comment.